Fabulous. Good morning. It's lovely to be here to tell you a little bit about Onside Advocacy Services. We're commissioned to provide advocacy services throughout Herefordshire and Worcestershire, but I'm just talking about Herefordshire today. In terms of questions, please don't ask. I've only been in post a few months. I don't know all the technicalities of it, but if you genuinely do want to know something and I don't have the answer, I will get back to you. But I'm not an advocate. I didn't know what an advocate was when I started to inquire into Onside, and it's quite difficult to explain sometimes to people who are not familiar with it. So I just thought I'd put a couple of slides up just to give people an indication of what I'm talking about, really. And the most important thing about an advocate is they don't tell anybody what to do. They listen and they magnify that voice back to the decision makers. The advocates do not tell people what to do. They do not give people advice. Clearly, some people have got family and friends who can provide that voice for them, but others don't. And there's a lot of people in society who don't have that support, and this is where the advocates can add some real value to their lived experience. So, as I say, Onside provide a range of advocacy services, and the statutory ones I'm just going to give you a bit of a run through today. And part of this awareness raising is you may identify opportunities where somebody could be referred to an advocate. We think that there's a lot of people in the system who don't get access to an advocate because they're not aware, and the people they're working with are sometimes not aware either. So the Care Act requires local authorities to ensure that people who are unable to make decisions about their own care are given access to an advocate. So it's not an either or, it's a legal duty on behalf of the local authority. Some people who are unhappy with the way that they've been treated within the NHS have the ability to make a complaint. If you've ever had to make a complaint against a large institution, it's sometimes really difficult to know how to get your voice heard, how to get in there, and how to get a response. And when you've got that response, if you're unhappy with it, how to go through the appeals procedure. So the independent healthcare advocate will sit with that person, identify what their issues are, help them put together a letter of complaint, or however the process is, and we'll support them through that process. And again, the advocate doesn't tell them what to do, but the advocate takes what they're telling them and puts it into the sort of language that we hope the NHS will be able to respond to and to move through it. Anybody can refer for that. Somebody discovered Health Watch are really helpful in directing people towards this service so that they can get the proper support that they need to go through the process. As it says on the tin, the independent mental health advocacy, people who have been assessed as not having the mental capacity to advocate for themselves effectively, have access to a trained professional who will make sure that their voice is heard and considered. Sometimes the person may have unrealistic expectations. It is not for the advocate to help manage those expectations, but it is to support them to convey their wishes. They might want to be in a different part of the county, or closer to home, or at home, and it may well be that the treatment they're receiving, they can't get that, but it's not for the advocate to manage their expectations. It's just to make sure people know, the decision makers know what the person requires. Some people end up in care facilities and don't have family and friends to care to inquire into how they're being treated. I saw a case note from an advocate who went into a care home and had formed a relationship with the service user and recognised after a couple of visits this service user's weight was going down, and became quite concerned about it. And the care home were unable to provide the advocate with satisfactory explanation, and she quite doggedly kept up to them, and eventually ended up making a safeguarding referral about that person. So they, the RPRs do take quite a lot of personal interest in making sure that people are being treated fairly. And then the other really important work that goes on is if somebody's detained in a mental health unit, we have advocates who will be on that unit several times a week, meeting, introducing themselves to everybody, ensuring that they know there's somebody there to support them. They might be attending a review with a clinician, and the advocate will support them and might even attend that care plan review with them, but won't speak on their behalf. That's not the role of the advocate. The role of the advocate is to magnify the patient's voice, not to speak on their behalf. And we have a referral process for professionals. Social workers, NHS workers tend to know what that referral process is, but there are also people who phone up and say, I think I need your help. Can you tell me how you can help me? The staff on the Access Hub who take those calls extremely experienced, know the right questions to ask, and will usually signpost the person to where they have to be. So that's a real canter through the advocacy services that are available in Herefordshire. So, as I say, if there are any questions, I may phone a friend, but if not, I'm going to be hanging around and be happy to chat with people.
Thank you very much, Mick. It's great to hear about. Have we got any questions?